Tuvok's complete Star Trek timeline explained. Few characters in Star Trek embody the ideals of logic, loyalty, and quiet heroism as completely as Tuvok. A Vulcan Starfleet officer, philosopher, spy, and teacher, Tuvok's life spans over a century and touches nearly every major era of the Star Trek timeline, from the early days of Captain Kirk to the far reaches of the Delta Quadrant with Captain Janeway. His story is one of patience, discipline, and the constant search for balance between duty and emotion. Let's walk through Tuvok's complete timeline, from his birth in the 23rd century to his most recent confirmed appearance in Star Trek: Prodigy. 1. The early years 2264 to 2290. A Vulcan youth in conflict. Tuvok was born in 2264 on the planet Vulcan, roughly a century before the events of Star Trek: Voyager. Like most Vulcans, he was raised to suppress emotion and embrace logic. However, Tuvok's youth was marked by internal conflict. Unlike the serene Vulcans we often see, he struggled deeply with emotional control and resentment toward the rigid expectations of his people. By the time he was in his 20s, Tuvok found himself questioning not just his place in Vulcan society, but the very tenets of Vulcan logic. He described his young self as arrogant and angry, feelings that led him to resist the Vulcan ideals of emotional suppression. His parents arranged his marriage to T'Pel, but the bond wouldn't be formally completed until later in his life, a decision that reflected his uncertainty about his future. In 2289, at age 25, Tuvok made the defining choice to join Starfleet Academy. It was an unconventional move for a Vulcan, as many of his peers preferred the Vulcan Science Academy. For Tuvok, though, Starfleet represented an opportunity to understand the wider galaxy and perhaps himself. To Tuvok's first Starfleet career 2290 to 2304. Under Captain Sulu, Tuvok's first Starfleet posting placed him aboard the USS Excelsior, serving under the command of Captain Hikaru Sulu, a legendary officer from the original Star Trek series. The events of Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, occurred during this era, and it's here that Tuvok's canon life first intersects with Kirk's era. Though Tuvok was a competent and loyal officer, his experience aboard the Excelsior was not entirely positive. He found Starfleet's human-centric culture difficult to navigate, and he struggled to reconcile his Vulcan values with Starfleet's emotional camaraderie. In 2304, after nearly 15 years of service, Tuvok resigned from Starfleet. He returned to Vulcan, where he entered a long period of self-reflection and meditation. He completed his marriage bond with T'Pel and dedicated himself to family life, raising 4 children. This period solidified his emotional control and deepened his understanding of Sirac's teachings. 3. Returned to Starfleet 2349. The veteran officer. After decades away, Tuvok rejoined Starfleet in 2349, now a mature and deeply disciplined Vulcan. His decision came from a renewed belief that logic demanded service, that Starfleet's mission of exploration and diplomacy was a rational extension of Vulcan philosophy. By this time, Starfleet had changed dramatically. The Federation had grown, and the ideals of cooperation and peace were closer to Vulcan principles than ever before. Tuvok thrived in this new Starfleet, eventually serving as a tactical officer, security chief, and instructor at Starfleet Academy. This is also when Tuvok developed a friendship with Captain Jean-Luc Picard and other officers who valued his wisdom. He gained a reputation for being an uncompromising but fair officer, with a teaching style that blended Vulcan calm with sharp intellect. For Tuvok, the Spy 2360s-2370s, Starfleet Intelligence, and Deep Cover, one of the lesser-known parts of Tuvok's career is his time in Starfleet Intelligence. During the 2360s, he was assigned to covert missions against threats like the Cardassians and the Maquis. His mastery of logic and emotional concealment made him an ideal spy. Though he viewed the role with discomfort, it required deception, something Vulcans traditionally find distasteful. In 2370, Tuvok was assigned a particularly dangerous mission: infiltrate a group of Maquis rebels in the Badlands. The Maquis were Federation citizens rebelling against the peace treaty with the Cardassians, and Tuvok's goal was to gather intelligence for Starfleet. He served undercover aboard Chakotay's Maquis ship, posing as one of them. This mission would unknowingly set the stage for one of the most extraordinary adventures in Star Trek history. 5. The Delta Quadrant years 2371 to 2378. Star Trek Voyager. In 2371, while chasing the Maquis vessel, Captain Kathryn Janeway and the crew of the USS Voyager were pulled 70,000 light-years across the galaxy by a powerful alien known as the Caretaker. Tuvok's cover was blown, but the situation forced the Starfleet and Maquis crews to unite for survival. Tuvok became Voyager's chief of security and one of Janeway's most trusted advisors. His relationship with her was one of deep mutual respect. She valued his logic, and he, in turn, valued her ethical clarity. Over 7 years in the Delta Quadrant, Tuvok became a stabilizing presence for the entire crew. He served as mentor to Ensign Harry Kim, counselor to Neelix, and sometimes sparring partner to the Doctor. But his Vulcan discipline was tested repeatedly. In Meld, Tuvok performed a mind meld with a murderer, resulting in temporary emotional instability. In Riddles, he suffered neurological damage that stripped him of logic, revealing the warmth and humor beneath his Vulcan stoicism. In Gravity, we saw his past romance with a Vulcan woman named Jara, showing that his emotional depth had always existed. He simply learned to control it. His relationship with Neelix was particularly rich. Initially annoyed by the Talaxians' exuberance, Tuvok eventually became his closest friend, though he would never admit it directly. By the time Voyager returned to the Alpha Quadrant in 2378, Tuvok had not only ensured the safety of the crew, but also grown profoundly. He remained loyal to Janeway to the end, perhaps even more so than any other officer. 6. Post-Voyager career 2378 to 2400. The Admiral's Advisor. Following Voyager's return, Tuvok's career continued to flourish. He was promoted and served in various advisory and training roles within Starfleet Command. His expertise in tactics and intelligence made him invaluable, and he mentored a new generation of officers, many of whom had grown up idolizing the Voyager crew. Though much of this era remains undocumented, Tuvok's presence echoes through the 25th century Star Trek stories. In the Star Trek Lower Decks era, his name is often mentioned with reverence. 7. The Mind of Tuvok. Legacy in Star Trek Prodigy. In Star Trek Prodigy, which takes place roughly in the 2380s, Tuvok makes a welcome return as a Starfleet admiral. His calm authority and experience make him a natural bridge between the older generation of heroes and the new. He appears via holographic communication with Vice Admiral Janeway, helping to coordinate missions related to the USS Protostar incident. Even in this brief appearance, it's clear that Tuvok remains what he always was, the embodiment of Starfleet's most logical virtues: order, reason, and loyalty. 8 alternate timelines and mirror universe versions. Tuvok's presence extends beyond the Prime timeline. In various alternate timelines and universes, he takes on different roles. In the Star Trek Online continuity, Tuvok becomes Admiral Tuvok, serving as the Vulcan representative on the Federation Council. In some Voyager alternate episodes, such as Endgame, future Tuvok struggles with a degenerative neurological disorder, a consequence of years of repressed emotion. Though not seen directly, fan theories suggest that a version of Tuvok might have existed in the mirror universe, possibly serving as an enforcer for the Terran Empire, cold, efficient, and terrifyingly logical. 9. The Essence of Tuvok. Why he endures.